Hello, this is the third in a series titled How to Make Your Crochet Look Like Knit. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the crochet knit called the moss stitch, which very much resembles the knitted stitch called a seed stitch. Now, there can be some confusion because a lot of people confuse the moss stitch with the seed stitch in terms of crochet. There are many different names for stitches, whether you're knitting or whether you're crocheting, and sometimes they match up between the crochet and the knit, and sometimes, quite frankly, they don't, but the same names are used for different fabric textures. So going forward, I'm going to try to condense these episodes into just one particular stitch, show its corresponding knit stitch or something that looks very close to it. And then I'm going to show you how to actually make the stitch, and I will typically give you tips on how to make that stitch work for you without having any specific instructions telling you what kind of count you actually need for a particular project. In other words, I will let you know what you need so that any project you decide to make with this particular stitch, you'll be able to figure that out on your own according to the size and length that you're looking to make it. That much you'll be able to work out on your own, but I will basically give you the formula. Okay, that was a long way to saying stick around and we'll get to it after I do a little bit of house cleaning. Okay, for those of you who know, you know, my name is Sig, and this is Crochet and Fiber, and you, of course, are always welcomed here. All I ask is that you hit the subscribe button, notification bar, and like buttons. These things only take you a moment of your time, but this allows me to not only keep you informed of my weekly videos, but it also helps the channel grow, and when the channel grows, then I can spend more time working on new programs and episodes. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start talking about it. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the moss stitch. So in crochet, we call this a moss stitch. And one of the nice things about this stitch is it's reversible. So basically your moss stitch looks just as good on the back as it does the front. And so not only is it a nice subtle texture, it also works really well when making things such as towels or dishcloths and anything else that you really kind of want to have a same back and front, just kind of that nice consistent look. Also, this just happens to be one of those stitches that was created pretty early on in the history of crochet. In fact, the moss stitch really is just one of those stitches that goes back to pretty much the early 1800s. So this has really been one of those stitches that has really stood the test of time, has had all sorts of wonderful uses. Again, the texture is lovely, and with regards to the knitted piece, it very much looks similar to a seed stitch. And as usual, you know, with crochet being crochet, most techniques are going to give you a thicker fabric. So if you want your moss stitch, or just about any other stitch that you're actually making with crochet techniques to look more like a knitted stitch, I often recommend that you go down in weight a little bit. Maybe you want to go down to a sport weight from a worsted weight. You might want to play with it. Sometimes you might get a more desired effect if you use something like a cotton yarn, something that's going to be a little more absorbent, maybe lay a little flatter, not so floofy like an acrylic or a wool yarn, for example. All of these things are worthy of consideration and certainly worthy of experimentation. But for today and all these videos, I am using just basic acrylic worsted weight yarn, basically a weight 4 and a size G hook. So for those of you who are interested in going down this road with me and visiting this episode once a month, I am basically, what I'm doing is each month when I do one of these episodes, I am going to make a 12 by 12 block. And basically, I'm just using my worsted weight extra yarn that I happen to have lying around. I have a lot of scrap yarn. I'm sure you do too. Or if you prefer, purchase the yarn in the colorway that you really like. And for me, ultimately, at the end of this, and at the end of these monthly episodes here in I don't know how long, but it's going to be a while. I'm sure maybe I would say we're going to be visiting this once a month for probably the next couple of years at least, because there are so many great patterns that really resemble knit, and I would like to bring those to you, whether it's just straight crochet or there's great Tunisian stitches that I'll be showing you. There's going to be lots of different stitches I'm going to be showing you once a month in terms of the crochet that looks like a knitted stitch. But I digress. Back to the 12 by 12, I will give you instructions on how to make a 12 by 12 using a size G hook with your basic 4 weight worsted yarn. Now again, I will also tell you the formula on how to make this stitch, and then of course you can measure out as big or as small as you would like it to be with whatever yarn you happen to choose to use. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started now that I've rambled on quite enough. Okay, so before we get started, I would like to give you the basic formula in terms of stitches. And a moss stitch can be performed with even number of stitches plus 1. So in other words, for demonstration purposes, I will be showing you 20 stitches. And then I will add 1 additional stitch to that. And that would leave me having to crochet 21 chains to begin my work. Now, if I wanted it bigger, for example, 50 stitches or 50 chains, which would make my piece approximately 12 inches long, I would then chain 50 plus an additional stitch, which would mean I would need to chain 51. Okay, so let me just go ahead and begin. For demonstration purposes, I am going to chain 20 plus 1, so I'm going to chain a total of 21 stitches. Now, if you are making a 12 by 12 sampler piece for a future afghan or pillow or whatever you want this swatch to be used for, you are going to want to chain 50 plus 1. So basically you're going to chain 51 stitches, and that'll give you approximately 12 inches in length. So I'm going to begin with my slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 plus 1 makes 21. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to single crochet in the second chain from my hook. So first and second, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to single crochet in that stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to skip the next chain, and I'm going to single crochet in this chain after that. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to skip this next chain, and I'm going to single crochet in the chain after that. And then I'm going to chain 1 again. I'm going to continue this until I hit that last stitch in this row. And when we get to that last stitch, I'll let you know what you need to do. So I'm going to continue again. I'm going to skip this next chain and I'm going to single crochet in the chain after that. Okay, so now we've come to the very last stitch and our last single crochet that we just made. Now for this last stitch, and in every row after this, the last stitch is always going to be a single crochet. So I'm going to break from the pattern and I'm going to place a single crochet into this last stitch. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 single crochets up until this point, and I have 9 openings. And then I've finished off my very last stitch with a single crochet. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to row 2. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, we've completed our foundation chain, our row 1, and now we're going to move on to row 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, turn my work, and then I'm going to chain 1. And for this particular piece, I want to start my first single crochet right here in the turning. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make my first single crochet right there in that same stitch that I turned in. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to skip the single crochet that's right under it. And then I'm going to single crochet into this 1 chain space. And then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip the next single crochet and I'm going to single crochet in the next 1 chain space, and then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip this next single crochet and I'm going to single crochet in the next 1 chain space. I'm going to continue that all the way to the end till I hit that last stitch that I am going to go ahead and, as mentioned before, place a single crochet into that stitch. So now you can see I just placed my last single crochet before I can go any farther. And instead of making a chain, because now I've hit my last stitch, I'm going to simply single crochet into that last stitch. So now I've completed row 2. I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to begin row 3. And for row 3, I'm simply going to repeat row 2. And I will continue to repeat row 2. So basically this is going to be a single row repeat, or what we would call a single row repeat. So again, I'm going to single crochet in that same stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip the next single crochet, and I'm going to single crochet in the 1 chain space. I'm going to skip the single crochet after I've chained my 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in the next 1 chain space. And I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip the next single crochet, and then I'm going to single crochet in the next 1 chain space. And I'm going to continue that all the way to the end of my row 3 until I hit that last stitch, at which time, instead of making a chain 1, I'm going to place a single crochet right in that. So again, my last stitch, and I'm going to place my single crochet right there into that last stitch. And that's going to be the completion of row 3. So again, this is a 1 row repeat, and it's row 2 that you're going to continue to repeat. Now, if you're just practicing this stitch, go ahead and do this as many times as you like until you get the feel of and the rhythm of this particular stitch. If you are making yourself a 12 by 12 sampler swatch or block, whatever you want to call it, you're going to want to do approximately 50 rows. Now, depending on your stitches, depending on the yarn you're using, you may want to gauge your work. And in fact, I actually recommend that. So the instructions I'm giving you here are basically based off of the yarn and hook size that I happen to be using. Your stitches may vary a little bit in terms of how many chains you're going to make versus how many rows you need to make to achieve your 12 by 12 block. Okay, guys, so that's all there is to it. This week was a little on the simple side. Weeks coming in the future might be a little more difficult. They just might be more interesting. It all really depends on where you're at. I'm going to try to keep this pretty slow. Hopefully it's interesting enough for individuals who are more advanced, and hopefully I explain myself well enough and the stitch well enough for those of you who are just learning. If you have any questions or any concerns, please leave your comments below. And I do my best to get to everybody. I read all the comments. Keep them respectful. Don't be a jerk. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in my other videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. So until then, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye now.